Module 1. An Introduction to Outsourcing. To begin with, let's define what we mean by outsourcing in the context of the biotechnology and pharmaceutical industry. Outsourcing in biopharma refers to the practice of contracting out specific functions, processes, or projects to external organisations. These are typically contract research organisations, known as CROs, contract development and manufacturing organisations, CDMOs, or other specialised service providers. Outsourcing can include various aspects of drug discovery, development, and manufacturing. So why is outsourcing so important right now to pharma and biotech? There are many reasons why outsourcing partners have become critical to the success of biopharma companies. Here are some of the most important. The cost of getting a new drug to market continue to rise and are currently estimated to be on average $1.3 billion. In a competitive marketplace where margins have been eroded, there's real pressure on pharma companies to find the most cost-effective ways to research, develop and manufacture. Just as important is speed to market. As companies race to get their drugs approved, outsourcing can give rapid access to expertise and high-quality facilities as needed. The rise of the virtual biotech model, a new breed of company purely reliant on outsourcing, has accelerated progress in new therapeutic areas. Today, around 90% of biotechs rely on CDMOs, so that they can focus on doing what they do best, not investing in in-house facilities. But outsourcing is not just for biotechs, far from it. Big Pharma is estimated to outsource nearly half of all its R&D activities. And generic drug manufacturers can outsource up to 80% of their production to CMOs. Another reason outsourcing is under the spotlight is sustainability. The pharma industry has embraced sustainability, signing up to stretching net zero goals and science-based targets for decarbonisation. 80% or more of a pharma company's CO2 emissions come from their supply chain, also known as Scope 3 emissions. This means it's only through close collaboration with outsourcing partners and raw material suppliers that their corporate sustainability targets will be achieved. There are 6 key strategic drivers for companies choosing to outsource. 1. Cost effectiveness, using outsourcing to reduce capital expenditures and fixed costs. 2. Speed to market, working with the right partner with the right capabilities can significantly accelerate drug development timelines. 3. Tapping into an existing quality infrastructure of approved facilities with existing, well-documented processes. 4. Supply chain resilience, by having the right network in the right places. 5. ESG, working with the right outsourcing partners is one of the best ways to decarbonise your network. And 6. Access to expertise when you need it. Outsourcing allows companies to tap into specialised knowledge and technologies, which would take years to build in-house. In order to deliver those strategic objectives successfully, companies require these 6 essential capabilities. Project management is a key role to bring together the various stakeholders and drive progress to a timeline. Quality and regulatory compliance are critical capabilities for your team, and typically require both a quality professional and regulatory affairs. To avoid spiralling costs due to unforeseen circumstances, strong, well-negotiated contracts are critical. Communication and relationship management is needed to keep both internal and external teams working together. Risk mitigation is necessary to help manage the business and technical risks in the partnership, with appropriate oversight strategies to ensure compliance and smooth operations. And there needs to be a focus on the strategic partnership, finding new ways to enable a contract provider to offer their specialised expertise. Outsourcing should not be a tactical supplier relationship and should be treated differently if you're to unlock its full value. Of course, it's worth noting, not everyone needs to be a master of all 6 capabilities, but it's important to familiarise yourself with them, and for the full outsourcing team to have experts that cover each base. Let's now look at an overview of the outsourcing landscape. The number of contract service providers in biopharma has exploded in recent years. This is about half the companies listed in the PharmaSource North American CDMO landscape. with similar levels of complexity in other key markets such as Europe, India and China. As you can see, the market can broadly be divided by modality, the types of therapeutics they can support. And at a top level, these are small molecule, large molecule or biologics, and cell and gene therapy. Let's now look at these in turn. First is small molecules. These are low molecular weight compounds, typically chemically synthesized drugs. Examples of this include antibiotics, analgesics such as aspirin, and antihistamines. Some of the challenges around the development and manufacture of small molecules include cost pressure, balancing cost effectiveness while maintaining quality and compliance, intellectual property protection, ensuring the confidentiality and safeguarding of your proprietary information during outsourcing, and regulatory compliance. In this highly regulated industry, it can be a challenge to meet stringent requirements across different regions. An important fact to note is that today, around 90% of all drugs sold globally are small molecules, and it's by far the most cost-effective way of treating patients. On average, the daily dose of a biologic costs 22 times more than that of a small molecule dose. Next is biologics. These are large, complex molecules produced using living cells. Examples of this include monoclonal antibodies, vaccines, and antibody-drug conjugates, commonly known as ADCs. Some of the outsourcing challenges around biologics include complex manufacturing processes. Biologics involve intricate processes, making the scale-up and consistent production challenging. Temperature-controlled supply chains. Cold chain logistics are commonly used to freeze or refrigerate biologics during storage and transportation, which adds an extra level of complexity, and which requires a high level of quality control, ensuring product quality and safety throughout the manufacturing process. And then cell and gene therapies. Cell and gene therapies are personalised treatments using the cells or genetic material of a patient or donor. Examples include gene editing or CAR-T therapies. Outsourcing challenges around cell and gene therapies include patient customization and supply. Every patient's therapy is unique and personalised to them, which requires tailored manufacturing and supply chain processes to and from the lab. There are currently scalability issues. Adapting cell and gene therapy production from small-scale research to large-scale commercialization can be challenging. And due to the early stage of this modality, there are still many regulatory hurdles to overcome. There's currently a lack of regulatory alignment between different regions, such as between the United States FDA and Europe's EMA, which means it can be challenging to navigate the evolving regulations specific to cell and gene products. Let's now look at the different types of outsourcing partners and how they support research, development and manufacturing across different stages of the drug pipeline. When you look at the different stages, the first thing to notice is this is a long process. The average time to develop a drug from candidate nomination to launch is around 12 years. Drug discovery and preclinical can take 3 to 6 years. Getting through clinical trials from phase 1 to 3 as the number of patients goes up at each phase can take 6 to 7 years. And once you've completed phase 3, it can still take another 6 months to 2 years to get regulatory approval and start commercial manufacturing. Different types of contract service providers can help across different stages. Contract research organisations, or CROs, offer preclinical and clinical research services, which can take a drug through discovery and clinical trials. Contract manufacturing organisations, or CMOs, step in at late-stage clinical to commercial, offering large-scale manufacturing services. In between those two are contract development and manufacturing organisations, or CDMOs. CDMOs offer an integrated service that can take a drug from preclinical all the way through to commercial manufacturing. And then finally, there's an increasing number of service providers who position themselves as a contract research development and manufacturing organisation, or CRDMO, a slightly clunky acronym which goes all the way from discovery to commercial. It's also important to distinguish between the contract service providers that produce the drug substance, which is the active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API, and those that do the drug product formulation, also known as finished dosage form or FDF. The finished dosage form of a drug could be a tablet, capsule or solution that combines the API with other ingredients such as excipients and packaging. But many service providers now cover both. Now, let's look at some key trends. As the world's population increases, the populations are ageing, and as science progresses, the global healthcare industry is set to steadily grow over the coming years, and outsourcing is no exception to this. In terms of value, the CRO market is valued by Market and Markets at $82 billion in 2024 and forecast to increase to $129 billion by 2029. As you can see, the CDMO market is around 2.5 times larger. It's estimated to be worth around $200 billion and forecast to increase to $320 billion by 2029. Both the CRO and the CDMO sectors are growing at a fast rate, with a compound annual growth rate around 9% each year. Within that overall number, certain geographies are growing faster than others. The Indian CDMO market in particular is in a real growth phase. Some forecasts are putting India's CDMO growth rate around 15% CAGR, which means it could double in size over the next 5 years. Akhil Ravi, Chief Executive Officer at Origin, recently told us that India has an abundance of well-qualified professionals, including scientists, researchers and technicians, at a fraction of the cost compared to Western countries. It also has a well-established network of manufacturing facilities, the second most FDA-approved manufacturing plants outside the US, and remains the largest global supplier of affordable medicines. Which brings us to other key trends. Supply chain security became a high priority for governments following the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID focused the industry on supply chain resilience, with real political pressure for companies to onshore wherever possible. Key legislation in the United States is the Biosecure Act, which is intended to protect US national security by preventing high-risk companies from conducting business in the US, in particular China. Mergers and acquisitions. The high growth rate of the CDMO and CMO space makes them attractive segments for investment. The strong growth fundamentals and the need to future-proof capacity has driven a spate of acquisitions. And while it's worth noting that M&A shouldn't impact an existing contract between a sponsor and a service provider, it's important to have this as a scenario within your outsourcing strategy. Let's talk about some of the key trends shaping outsourcing. Firstly, the high cost of drug development, which averages $1.3 billion per drug, makes outsourcing an attractive option to contain costs. 2. The rise of virtual companies who rely entirely on outsourcing to get to market quicker. 3. There's a growing demand for end-to-end integrated services. 4. Small molecules are currently the greatest share of global sales, but development pipelines are increasingly focused on biologics and cell and gene therapies. 5. There's real pressure on capacity for in-demand technologies such as GLP-1s or cell and gene therapies. 6. Geopolitical pressures and a focus on supply chain resilience means that many are re-evaluating offshoring. 7. The adoption of AI and machine learning into manufacturing is expected to drive significant speed and efficiencies, but in this highly regulated space, implementation has been slow. And 8. An emphasis on sustainability, working with partners who rely on renewable energy and can bring green chemistry into manufacturing processes, is key to meeting corporate sustainability goals. Next, we invite you to take the short quiz to test your learning.